property values went up in a
Welcome. Just so you know, we're waiting for Skip to arrive to start the meeting. For those who are here, everybody is muted, and if you want to speak, you should raise your hand by clicking reactions. There's no public comment on this part of the meeting.
Not until the budget meeting.
The budget meeting is following the organizational meeting.
I saw some pictures of you going on one club. I don't know your social media though, so I don't mean hunting area, but
Not yet, you don't.
I will. Because I ran eventually on the one over there.
We're going to get worse.
Yeah, I hit a deer a few months ago over my car. I was going hunting.
Skip's last meeting when he was late. First meeting I ever known him to be late.
I've never known him to be late.
Well, technically, is he late if he didn't think he had to be here till 7?
He's late.
He might
Good show. Yeah.
He's been doing this for 20 years. He knows the meeting's at 6:30. It's the same time every year.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to give up the ghost.
I guess not.
We've only got one signed in for the budget meeting anyway, so it's Peter. So, I think what we'll do is whenever he rolls in here, I'll just release him, tell him he's needed down the high falls.
Well, you gotta let him swear people.
Yeah, after that.
Yeah. And it runs past. It runs up to 7.
Well, in the past, we've done all the trustees together and then you separate.
I didn't know we could do that, but
You can, yeah,
that's fine. Sure.
instead of doing one.
Yeah.
He'll probably appreciate that anyway.
So tonight was just a vote on the budget. It's already completed, and so I'm not gonna pretend to know what it is right now. Cool. I'm glad it's here.
The first part of it is this, we have to set up our committees.
Oh, okay, I see. I can put on some. That's cool. What's me?
Budget is actually down from last year, less than 1%.
Less than 1%, yeah.
Wow.
Down meaning what we're bringing in.
No.
Meaning that it's less than 1% of the total amount to be raised for taxes than it was last year.
And Deb, I see that Brian's putting you on a community day. So the first meeting's tomorrow night, just so you know.
The meeting is tomorrow night.
Community day, who's you got down there? Yeah, both of you guys.
You know about Deborah?
I do.
Cool. Who's he? What's it though?
Huh?
Who's he? What's it?
So what happens?
I thought you said.
What happens with this is the name in the front is the one that usually attends the meeting.
Okay.
The name in the back is the one that takes over the name in the front.
Okay. All right.
So the community day meetings are held at the Rod and Gun Club.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Cool.
I think, is it the first Tuesday?
So that assessment thing,
There's
Whatever.
no meeting.
there's no meetings, we just have to.
Sit down and-
Yeah. And the zoning board and the planning board liaisons, they're new,
Yeah.
but that's not for us to go and speak at the meetings. That's just so you guys can bring the information back
Got it,
to the village, so we
Okay.
know what's going on.
got it.
Legally, I believe the village board has no
We,
Correct.
hold over the.
That's correct.
it's just information for
Information
us.
gathering.
Yes.
Doug, when did you say the meeting?
7 o'clock tomorrow.
The first Tuesday of every month.
It's a little loose.
So you'll find out when the next one is.
Yeah, or- you know who the chairperson is, right? Beth?
Monty? Is it
No.
Monty again?
Sorry.
Sorry,
Oh, David.
yeah, so you can always ring him if you're not sure about when the meeting is or
Okay.
whatever.
Um, I'll just express a slight concern, which is that, what do I have? Yeah, board meetings, I just have.
Well, the zoning board and the planning board don't meet every month. That's only once in a
They
while.
might, they might go 3, 4 months without meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's not a, that's not.
They
every
only
month
meet when
thing.
they have business.
Okay,
I'm trying to think, the last planning board meeting was probably almost a year ago.
Yeah, it's,
okay, great.
and between the two of you, one of you ought to be able to make the meeting just to bring the information back to us.
Does Kurt Basil do email? Anybody know? He does or doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good question. Community meeting
I know Bob
Oh, wow.
McFarland
You
puts
were.
on Facebook
it
if
meets
it's on or if
once
it's off, so you know.
throughout
ahead
the
of time.
year?
Right.
Not hearing you.
It meets once a month. Oh, Carol, it meets once a month throughout the year.
We get a,
Normally,
we get a
except
report
for
from the town of Clark about their board meeting.
No.
not around December,
You think
not
we could if we
not
had
usually in the fall.
their minutes or they
Not
public?
right, but,
Minutes are public, yeah.
Yeah, they should be right online.
What was
Usually.
your role?
I think it's important that we know
Well,
what they're
Fine.
doing.
Well, the village liaison needs to make sure the police are there, and work with the fire company.
It affects us.
On the day of. Or,
You have
in the
to
meeting.
make sure the police are gonna be there, you gotta work with them earlier.
right, okay.
And pay the fireworks guy after the grounds are cleaned up Sunday morning.
Just pass the hat around.
Okay,
Church will have a check for you.
okay.
So you need to get that on the Friday before. See, what are the other village concerns? There aren't too many.
As far as community day,
Yeah, getting the police and fire on board,
Yeah.
including Melville Fire. And paying for the fireworks.
Which isn't hard because Monty's in the fire company and also and you, well.
Right.
well,
Okay, and then at the meetings, did you have any particular role?
Anyone?
Any particular role you ended up playing at the meeting?
No, it's been my general team, yeah, so.
Okay,
come on.
All right. Yeah, wow, come up with that.
Anyway, how the phone calls going?
Oh, I haven't touched base with Nathan yet today, but
Okay.
we did have 2 people
Well, thanks for coming
volunteer
over.
today. So
Oh, cool.
for a couple hours.
I've
I'm
been busy this week, but early.
gonna try and do either tomorrow or Thursday.
Yeah.
And you never get what we can get.
Nice to get it done this early.
Yeah, who's calling that
first?
Probably more,
That's
just
good.
like 2 months on the call.
We haven't done fire company yet.
Oh, well.
We might send out a reminder,
Okay,
but we gotta do it soon because April 30th is the deadline. so.
yeah, coming up.
I was wondering if, we were talking about the stimulus package, second stimulus package. If it makes sense for us if we're trying to do something like a brainstorming of different projects that could be funded with that. We want to look at priorities. Like, how are we generating a list of possible things to fund with that money?
Well, I know the county is still grappling with developing or getting or finding guidance for how you can spend it, because
it's supposed to be earmarked for something you didn't do because COVID happened.
Uh,
Like Tistria Holding in New Lebanon said she talked to Delgado's office and they had planned to buy a backhoe and they didn't because they cut funding and everything else. Well, now they can go back and buy that backhoe. So that's a pretty liberal approach on how you can spend that money.
Right.
But some people are saying that it would have to be tied directly to something you lost or didn't fund because it was COVID impacted. So that would make it harder. And I think it's they threw out the numbers, what would be anticipated. And then I think the other thing is going to be 2 stages. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah.
So it's not a lump sum at once. It's one and within a year and one within another 6 or a year later. But unfortunately, until the guidance comes out, everybody's struggling with how they're going to spend it. So I don't think it's a bad idea for you to plan. If you had a project or you had something that didn't happen, this is the shot in the arm
What
for
about
it.
the fire company not being able to do as many fundraisers?
Ooh, that's good.
That's a good one.
There's gonna be a lot of maybe generating a laundry list of what you think you would want to use it for and then getting it through our representatives, getting them to okay it. I'm assuming there'll be some oversight board that'll give you a yay or nay on pretty much everything through COVID. Can we vaccinate here? Can we do this? Can we do that? We asked the state and they give us some guidance. But it's frustrating because you've seen the amount of check what it's gonna be, but you haven't seen what you can spend it on yet.
Yeah. But I do know that, like you said, they're trying to make it pretty flexible so that if it isn't one of the things that's listed, you can approach
Right.
the office of Delgado
For sure.
and try to get it approved. But I mean, not being able to do fundraisers means we might be able to use it for
Most,
their pack.
mostly COVID had no impact on us.
The only issue they may have is being that money would be independent of what the bill, that would be the fire company's
Yeah.
money, not the village's money.
Yeah, that goes
So
into
the
like
fire
the
company-
commissioners.
The actual fire company members are, the village owns the building, the village owns all the
Yeah.
equipment, but the fire company also has money on their own.
Right.
And a hell of a lot, but so some of the things that we'd like come out of the fund drive money, and then some of the things that we'd like come out of what the village.
So the fundraiser goes for the scholarship.
Yeah, we give out $1,000 scholarship every year. but
Well, the other thing, I think, is it also true that it can go toward internet infrastructure?
Some have spoken about broadband, broadband improvements. Again, there's not a lot of detail, so it's kind of hard, but. Is every home in Philmont serviced by what, Mid-Hudson these days?
Yes.
Yeah,
There's a gentleman in the
Can be.
village, just
can be if they sign up for it.
Right.
Yeah.
a heads up, there's a gentleman in the village who, he works in the film industry and sound, and he was looking at fiber optic networking, and it's pretty innovative. What my understanding is that the village would build it, it would be expensive to build, but then the village would rent it to Mid-Hudson Cable. And it would, a benefit of it, or potential benefit of it for the village, is that it would allow us to have almost uniquely high internet speed and would be an attractor for businesses. So if we're looking at, I mean, I think he'll, he mentioned this to me and I think he's going to present something, but with internet, if we can't find something that has been COVID impacted, that we weren't able to buy, that might be something.
Police cameras, maybe.
Heard about this.
Can we tie that to COVID?
Probably buy anything, so. I don't know, but sure.
Well, Vern was didn't he say he was looking at grants for those too?
Yeah.
Thought so.
What about the library? The building upgrade for the library, which I think they've been,
That's substantial.
yeah,
You wouldn't even touch it with that. What was
Really?
it, 7,000?
7,000?
what,
Did you say it was 7,000?
the money from, no, the stimulus, I think, it's like 100 and,
For
20.
one?
for what? What are we
That
thinking?
Philmont could get 100,000?
I believe, 120. I could be wrong, but it's a chunk. And this is coming, how it works is Claverick will get a certain amount
All right.
based on a calculation, based on population, based on how many people filled out the damn census. And then we will get a percentage of what Claverick gets based on our population. And I did rough calculations and it seems to be coming out to something like 123,000. Now, I could be totally wrong, so just, I don't know, Rob, is that?
I think it sounds right. I know I saw an email somewhere with a potential breakdown. I'm just looking to see if I can find it quickly.
Okay. So that's a chunk of change.
So the town of Claverick would have to apply for it as well before we would even be considered. Is that what you're saying?
We don't have to be considered, but the money's coming. Right. Like the money's coming, we'll have it by the summer, I think. Claverick will have to make a simple request. And then they'll have a certain amount of time to get our share. We will have to apply. And we'll get half of that.
Hello.
I thought you were gonna get out early. Okay?
I'm screwed up.
I thought you were
Oh,
gonna
that's
get
true, that
out.
part of it, a little bit.
Not really.
No,
We got one person, that's good. Peter.
All
Hi, Rob.
right, we ready to start?
You want me just to read the rules quick or to start?
Just start.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Well, I guess we'll start first with the pledge of allegiance. All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call us to order.
All right, so this is the April 5th organizational meeting. First order of business is for our outgoing mayor to swear everybody in.
Okay. We'll do,
Where's
we'll
the
do
Bible?
Brian, we'll do Brian first.
Where's the Bible?
Right here.
You want pictures for Shelley or?
You got
Yeah.
the Bible?
Rob's got.
Well, this is the swearing. It's not the actual Bible.
You want a real Bible? I got one in my car.
No, there's one here someplace.
Oh.
could it be in Carla's office?
Oh, it could be. Yeah, I don't have an actual Bible.
Find it yet?
It's locked.
It's in that closet. right there.
We can blame this all on the fact that I'm new.
Old fashioned lady.
Uh,
I mean, at
At least the key didn't break off in a lock.
All right, sirs, where do you think it is?
You ready?
Yep.
First name where I use mine, I
I, Brian Johnson,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of mayor
the duties of mayor
of the village of Philmont,
Village of Philmont,
term to expire March 31, 2023.
term to expire March 31, 2023.
Congratulations.
All right, so in lieu of speed tonight, I'm gonna break from this, and I'm gonna do my first official duty. And I'm gonna appoint Doug Cropper by virtue of the vacancy created, by virtue of my power as mayor of the village of Philmont. I, Brad Johnson, appoint Doug Cropper as trustee to fulfill my remaining term to expire March 31st, 2022.
Three trustees come up. Hands on there. Repeat after me using your name. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
United States.
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
Constitution of the State of New York.
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of village trustee, 2 years, term to expire March 31, 2023.
2 years, term to expire March 31, 2023.
1 year term.
1 year term. Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
Sorry, Robert, keep going.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'll put the Bible right out.
See you later.
All right, thank you. for
Have a good
coming on,
night.
Rob.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, so the organizational meeting goes as follows. Following assignments were made by me, and you guys are gonna have to make a motion to accept after I read these off. Daily operations is gonna be Doug and I. Police and the courts is gonna be myself and Doug. Library, Jason and Larry. Streets and sidewalks, Larry and myself. Lighting is gonna be Deborah and Doug. Water and sewer, myself and Doug. Community center, Doug and Larry. DPW is myself and Doug. Fire liaison, gonna be Jason and Larry. Buildings and properties, Doug and myself. Insurance, it's gonna be Larry and Deborah. State and federal housing is gonna be Jason and Deborah. Fiscal budget is gonna be Trish and Chrissy. Attorney is Rob Fitzsimmons. Code enforcement is Lee Hine. The bank is Bank of Green County. Registrar and licensing officer is going to be Trish and Chrissy. Newspaper is a Register Star with an alternate as Columbia newspaper. Solid waste is going to be Larry and I. Parks and Recreation is going to be Jason and Larry. Village engineer is CPL, which is Ray Jurkowski, as needed. Village electrician is Tim Leggett, as needed. Water and sewer foreman is David Sider. Fair housing officer is Trish and Chrissy. Economic development is going to be Larry and Deborah. Acting judge is going to be Grant Prime. Deputy mayor will be Doug Cropper. Assessment review, this is a new one, is Deborah and I. Emergency management is Doug and Jason. Forest Lake, Doug and I. Community Day is Deborah and Jason. Zoning Board of Appeals liaison, this is a new one. It's Jason and Deborah. Planning Board, also new, is Deborah and Jason. BOA grant is Larry and I. And Climate Smart Community Development is Deborah and I. We do, where did you go? You left?
Rob, yeah.
So all I need is, oh, we
Motion
gotta,
to
we
accept
gotta
these
read
on
this
the-
stuff on the back here. You can read that, Trish.
Well, how about we go to the motion to accept the assignments
All
for
right.
first and second,
Of course, that.
Brian, you forgot the
economic development?
police
I said that.
OIC,
Oh, okay.
and so on at the top, you skipped over.
Oh. Police OIC is Vernon Doyle and the deputy OIC is Jeremy White.
I'm wondering if we wanted to create a communication committee, or just, because I'm building the website and then
Well, since we haven't talked about it yet, this is not the meeting to do that at, so if we need to appoint one, we'll do
we
it.
can do it later.
Yes.
Great.
Do I,
First and the second.
I'll make the motion to accept the appointments.
I'll second the one.
Perfect.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Therefore, they're carried.
Awesome. All right, you would like me to read the resolutions?
Yes.
Whereas there's to be held during the coming official year, magistrates meetings conducted by the state local associations, Mohawk Hudson Village officials meetings, I should have made it print bigger. Meetings for training sessions, schools for fiscal officers, planning, zoning officials, municipal clerks, conferences conducted by conference mayors, which is NICOM. Informational training sessions for public works, sewer water departments, planning, zoning officials conducted by state and county associations. And whereas it is determined by the Board of Trustees that attendance by village officials and or employees at one or more of these meetings, conferences, schools, benefits by the municipality. Now therefore, it be resolved that the village hereby authorizes the attendance of village officials, employees to attend the above mentioned meetings, conferences, schools, and that is a resolution that will take effect immediately. Passed on the motion of, I need a first and second.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed?
Resolved that the Village of Philmont monthly meetings of the Board of Trustees shall take place on the second Monday of each month in the Village Hall at 7:00 p.m. And workshop meetings are to be held the fourth Wednesday of each month at 7:00 p.m. Motion made by,
Deborah? I'll make the motion.
Second.
second
All
by
in
Deb.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolved that the authorization of payments in advance of audit for such items as electric, phone, postage, payroll, and similar bills of necessity is accepted by motion and made by,
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
resolved that mileage to be paid officials for using their own cars for village business is at 56 cents a mile. Motion made by,
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
resolved that bonds for officials and employees continue at the same rate by motion made by,
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
was it Doug the second?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Resolved that the library board meetings will be held on the first Wednesday of each month, made by,
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
motion that the village elections be set for the third Tuesday in March, made by,
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
now as it talks about registration, motion to use the county voter registration list for all future elections. That should have been part of the other one. I apologize. Motion to adopt meeting rules of procedure made by,
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
to appoint Grant Prime as acting justice made by,
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
and then the last one's to adjourn, so that's not me. We should go on to the budget hearing first.
No,
No,
that's a
you
different.
Oh, okay. That's not me then, motion to adjourn.
I'm gonna entertain a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting.
Second.
First, I guess.
Yeah.
You said
Oh.
second, right?
Yeah.
You said second first.
I thought he was making the motion.
No, I can't make it anymore.
Oh.
I just- All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the organizational meeting is now closed. Steve,
Hey, buddy.
you're requested down to the high polls.
Oh, yeah, I might. Okay. All right.
We'll meet you down there.
Don't forget the beer and shot. Welcome aboard, man.
I appreciate that.
Down there. Tiffany's down there.
Okay.
Down there.
All right,
Hey, see you guys later.
we'll see you in a
Good
bit.
luck.
I'm gonna excuse myself.
Yep.
And take care of that
Thank you.
stuff.
I'm gonna be mad at every one of you. Yeah. Home now.
All right, so now we're gonna open the budget hearing. No one except Peter Johnson has signed in to talk, so we'll hear what Peter's got to say before we vote on the budget.
Okay.
Peter, can you unmute, or actually, maybe I have to.
Yeah, you can sit over here. Well, okay, there's a case you can answer.
Peter, are you able to unmute yourself? There you are. You can't. Hang on. I mean, I don't seem to be able to.
There, now
Okay, great.
it's unmuted. Yep. You have the magical touch.
There you go.
All right, thanks. I sent, and I assume you have two documents. Let me move this down. Yeah. And so what, if one thinks of a budget as basically a planning document that reflects the village priorities, and apparently the only document that does give you what is the reality of the budget is this annual updated document, the AUD, that the state requires. So I assume that most people on the board will have seen that document at some time. What we have here, the proposed budget is really lumping together categories. So for example, under contractual, which appears frequently, that could be paper, uniforms, consulting, electricity, and so forth. So it would be, I think, much more useful as a planning document and also as a measure to make sure that you don't really run out of money to move to one that isn't aspirational, but that is an actual budget that will give you what the adopted budget was of the preceding year and then what actually was spent. So in some quarters, this is called like zero-based budgeting, but this year you've gone around, you've asked the various departments what monies they want and so forth. But I see some things that are a bit curious in this budget. And for instance, at 1120, the county tax is anticipated to be 5,000 higher. And I'm just wondering, given COVID and the conditions overall in the county and the state, if not the country, how you're expecting to have 5,000 higher. In the 14,404 is an engineer contractual. And I wonder there why there isn't a separate category for hiring consulting engineers. Reference was just made a few minutes ago about a village engineer. Maybe that's what this means. in 31202, the police capital and equipment. So you've got 12,400. Is that going to be sufficient to meet the requirements of the agreement with the sheriff and the board of supervisors of the county? Because, as you know, Philmont did not submit a separate report to the governor. It decided to go with whatever the county is doing. So I'm just wondering, since they're rolling out $100,000, or no, it's actually $1 million a year for body cameras. I'm just wondering how this MOU that Rob was preparing, how that looks in terms of the local police force. How does it break down between capital expenses and the equipment that is going to be required by this MOU with the sheriff and the board of supervisors? On 54104, there's again a 5,000. I'm just wondering on what that figure is based. And anyway, there are a number of other areas here that I'm wondering about. And I think that is often because the document you present, the proposed budget for public consumption, gives the actuals through January 31st. So there are really 4 more months. But when you look at those actuals and you look at what you are putting in as a preliminary budget, there are some very wide gaps between that and the adopted budget of preceding years, or it's simply the continuity of preceding years. But the document you've given us to understand your preliminary budget, you have adopted budget for 2018-19 and adopted budget for 2019-20. I would argue, based upon my experience working with budgets of this type in other organizations, is that the adopted budget for the full preceding fiscal year, you should have the adopted budget as well as the actual expenditures, so that we are better able to understand the relationship between what is adopted and what actually was expended, because you're basing your preliminary budget on adopted budgets rather than what's actually expended, which goes back to my original comment on the annual updated document, the AUD, which I assume you are preparing annually for the state, as it is required by the state. So this is basically a plea, which is elaborated much more in the documents I sent earlier, and I assume were distributed, to try and provide greater transparency on one hand, so the taxpayer knows where the money's going, and also particularly as a planning document. So that's my my questions and my suggestions. Thank you for your interest in this matter, and particularly in saving the taxpayer money, given that our community is one of the highest taxed communities in the county.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, the easiest thing that Peter said that would be implementable is continuing to provide the actual.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you have any experience with budget, like communities, municipalities that do show that zero-based budgeting that Peter was talking
Zero-based
about?
budgeting, like going against the actual.
No, I think I'm not, he called it zero-based budgeting, but I think it's this idea where instead of contractual, it's broken down and.
But that's not, I mean, it can be done, but under municipal accounting, you show your 0.1s, your 0.2s, your 0.4s,
It's all,
they're lumped together. So it's not, I don't want to say it's not practical to show the detail. The problem with showing the detail is then every time if you want to do a budget transfer between like these sub accounts in a 0.4, like if you break out electric, phone, you have to go to the board and resolve to do these budget transfers. So it becomes a burden. The AUD that Mr. Johnson's speaking about is actually the way it's set up is by these categories of 0.1, 0.2, 0.4. So that's kind of what we're legally bound to, not that we can't give more information, but we have to stay within that parameter of showing the salaries, the capital outlay and the contractual.
so those numbers are set by the state.
Those, yeah, the account coding is set by the state and there's really no, like, we have no control over that. You know, that's something that, you know, you might want to take up at the state level with Albany, but no, I don't think this is the arena to discuss that, but you can have more detail if you want. You can have more detail in the 0.4s, 0.2s. But to me, it's not practical, just in my experience. Municipalities that do show that type of detail, I always encourage them to like roll it up into just like a 0.4 for each department. So by department, we show it, but this actually coincides with the AUD. And the idea is that this can easily be transferred into preparing the AUD for the state.
And to Peter's question about why we have 5,000 more this year in the.
Sure. So the sales tax number for every municipality, probably in New York State, is historically under budgeted. And it's just because we never know. It's such a moving target and it always comes up high. Oh, I mean, if you look back historically in any municipality, and you know, it's no different here in Philmont, if you look back over the past 10 years, it's probably always come in over the mark. So finally this year, I brought it up to where a little more. I don't want to be too aggressive because of COVID, but I did bring it up a little bit more to try to get it closer to that actual number. Because the idea is that we get everything as close to actual as possible.
So Bob, since you're sitting here and the public is on, I'll let you give the overview of the budget.
Sure.
Just leave them on for a couple minutes. He's going to give the overview of the budget and then we'll vote on it.
So on the general fund side, overall, the budget went down less than 1%. The levy itself stayed the same. It's still the overall levy for the whole village is still $537,120. The tax rate per thousand is $7.70. And that's based on the taxable value that comes from the county. So that number is put against the amount to be levied, which is the 537,000, and then that's where we get our rate per thousand.
The property tax?
That's that's the rate per thousand that will be on the tax bill. Overall, the revenue, well, the appropriations are down less than 1% from last year. So in my estimation, that's basically a flat budget. And I think with a lot of the unknown headed into the next fiscal year, that was a good move by you know, the board to really keep it level. The general side. And water and sewer is also kept flat from prior year. And that's something that can be reassessed as far as the rates and if they need to be adjusted. That's again probably like the first quarter of the fiscal year.
All right, and if we did get our AUD report back,
Yes, the AUD was completed. The comptroller came back with some questions, which I answered, and I'm just waiting now to hear back from them. But that's a normal process for them to review it. They ask about any lines that don't make sense to them, and then I answer the questions. That's all done via email, and then they approve it So it's set up so we can file the coming.
So,
When will that be completed?
They're them kind of stamping their approval on it. I would say I answered them. That was last week. Usually it's pretty quick. They'll respond via email and just say, okay, thank you. And then they move ahead. And set up the portal so I can go on and file the current fiscal.
all right, so I'm gonna ask for a motion to adopt the budget.
Motion. A second.
I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. So the budget's adopted. Now I'm gonna entertain a budget, motion to adjourn the budget hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we're done. Thank you, everybody.
You have to be fair.
Thank you, community. For those who are here, Brian, I was wondering if we should make an announcement about how we're going to go back to the old way of doing things where community input is for the board meetings. Is going to happen on board meetings and workshops are for us.
Yeah, workshops are for us.
And Trish, I wonder if that's something,
We can make that next Monday at night at the,
make that announcement and maybe we
Board
can
meeting.
post it or send an email around about that, because that's a big change. Okay, good night, everyone.